on the latest Talkin TV Variety Hour. We're kicking it back. We're getting relaxed. It's Friday night. But of course, there was some big news in the world of movies and TV. Dune is getting shaken up by this new AT&T, Time Warner, HBO, whatever. There's a whole lot of corporate terms. Amazon's trying to buy out MGM. There's a lot of stuff to shake up, but also we're going to kick it back and talk some casual stuff. We're talking the new episode of Bad Batch, and we're talking about quite possibly the best new show the both of us have found, that being For All Mankind on Apple TV+. Chris, you got any thoughts before we get this kicked off?
You know, we might even bring up some surprise topics too. I think it's going to be a amazing stream tonight, and I'm very glad you guys are here with us.
Yes, indeed. It's all covered here on the Talkin' TV Variety Hour. Stay tuned. It's funny, Chris. It's funny because literally, I feel like every time I have to explain to somebody the concept of Dune, because I mean, it's funny too how in the age of the internet, we're constantly in this place where we have to like explain certain topics to people that like certain IPs that they don't necessarily know about. You have no idea how many freaking times I've had to differentiate between Dune, based off the Frank Herbert novel, and Doom, based off the video game that was also turned into a movie in 2002 starring The Rock and Carl Urban. I've had to differentiate that for so many different people. It's kind of getting tiresome, but what's going on, guys? It's the latest episode of the Talkin' TV Variety Hour. I'm here. Chris is here. This is just our casual Friday night stream that we talk about, like, some big topics, you know? But we also just, like, want to take this in order to kind of, you know, get casual, talk to you guys, the fans overall. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I think we have a lot of good stuff on the show tonight. It's you know, some weeks are more newsworthy than others, and
yeah,
this
to
week
say the
was
least.
Clearly nothing shy of that. So,
oh man,
I
feel like
I'm doing good. It feels like it's been forever since we've done a live stream. We've been recording a lot of behind the scenes content for you guys coming up. Obviously, more of those Fast and the Furious first time watches, and some very special sort of different type content with some friendly faces that have been on the channel before. But it's just, I feel like I haven't talked to you guys live in a while. So it's just, I don't know. It's like, it's weird to say it's good to be back, but that's how it feels like.
It's honestly crazy to think about the fact that like we did Falcon and Winter Soldier in April, which was a month ago, like literally a month ago. It's insane to me still. And like that, like, obviously, again, like Disney wanted to give us a break so that they could get us prepped for Loki in the summer and everything. But also, it's not just that. It's the fact that like stuff is opening up again. You know, it's like vaccines are rolling out. Stuff is opening up again. We've been going to the movies. We're getting back, not like a consistent schedule, but like we're getting back into a consistent enough schedule, you know, even though like kind of we're still in this weird space as far as streaming versus theaters go. But it's just nice, honestly, to be back on the air and like getting to talk to you guys directly, because I really did miss that.
Yeah, no, me too, man. And I'm glad we have a lot of these sort of variety shows coming up over the next few weeks and months. So we'll be back at you guys on a Friday night, and it's good. I missed you. I miss you guys.
Miss you too. I mean, I miss you too, obviously, Chris. But like I said, we see each other so much now that, like I said before this, that I still don't know how we're not sick of each other at this point. But hey, look, we've been doing this for 2 years now, and look, you know what they say, right? What 2 years since we started. This is only 2021, right?
Okay,
We started in
gotcha,
2019,
yeah,
right?
Third season,
not
2
3
years,
years, right?
you're right.
Third season, second year doing. Trust me, I've been trying to differentiate that with TV for a while. It's like, oh, third season, but they've only been around for this amount of time. It's confusing as far as I go. There's a reason why we were film majors in school, not math majors. But oh man, like I guess, do you want to start by like just breaking down this news, because it's a lot. Like I hope you got some news articles in order to back you up, because I feel like I feel like this is another Kim situation. We're just trying to explain this is going to just confuse me.
Yeah, it's strange because, you know,
and not
Amazon.
Things.
Yeah, Amazon being the power player that they're becoming in the film world is just constantly just shaking things up. And so it's like so many things get affected by what happened with the MGM sort of thing, the MGM acquisition. But the thing is, the biggest thing for me is this Dune movie, which has already had so many issues, pushbacks, whatever, is now it's questionable because the real thing for me with the whole Dune movie is, so they put a lot of money into this first film, and if it goes half to streaming, like HBO Max for a month while it's in theaters, and if it only gets that 45-day window as opposed to that 90-day theatrical window, it's not going to make enough money to even warrant a second movie, which we clearly know is the plan.
Budget.
if it can't justify its budget, it doesn't matter how much faith is in the screenwriting, how many promises were made pre this acquisition. And obviously we as the fans were expecting multiple films because that's what was initially pitched. It's just kind of like, man, if they can't make their money back, none of this happens, and there's
Right.
no competitor in the sci-fi realm, which I think is unfortunate because I think it's become very stagnant.
I mean, do you want to like just like announce like the specifics of kind of what led to this? Because this whole thing, right? I just remember seeing this story, right? I saw it's like, oh, Warner Brothers is merging with Discovery. I'm like, cool. Who the fuck has watched Discovery in the last like 10 years? You know, like, I think the last thing I remember about the Discovery Channel is seeing that Dirty Jobs show on there, you know, like on commercials back when I had cable, which was like over 10 years ago now, you know? So like I didn't really think anything of it, but then I looked into it, and like again, like the specifics of the business deal are like really confusing as far as this goes. But basically the way that it goes is that AT&T announced a $43 billion deal to merge Warner Media. It specifically said Warner Media, not Warner Brothers, with Discovery. But under this agreement, AT&T said it would receive an aggregate amount of $43 billion in a combination of cash, debt, and Warner Media's retention of certain debt overall, which of course again continues to pave the way for one of Hollywood's biggest studios to compete with the media giants Netflix and Disney. But the way that basically this worked is that AT&T will basically unwind its $85 billion acquisition of Time Warner, which I didn't realize this. Did you know that apparently Time Warner closed and actually formed the new media company with Discovery? Were you even aware of that?
No, I had no idea. These umbrella companies are confusing to
It
follow.
really is. It really, really freaking is. But like, I'm just looking over the CNBC article. But basically, the way that it goes, it's essentially creating a new Warner Brothers business completely separate from AT&T, which famously, obviously, has been the governing company of Time Warner, right, for these last, I don't even know how many years now since they purchased it. I think it was sometime in like either the early or mid 2010s, if memory serves me correctly. But basically, like I said, they're receiving an aggregate of the $43 billion in a combination of cash, debt, and Warner Media's retention, essentially, while Warner merges with Discovery. AT&T shareholders would receive stock representing 71%, while Discovery shareholders would own 29%. So basically, the way that this works is this is essentially a kind of a more complicated but reverse version of Disney's acquisition of Fox back in 2018, which is where AT&T is both retaining the rights to Warner, but they're not going to be in like direct ownership of them the way that they were previously. And I guess this, for whatever reason, is affecting the Dune release, because I mean, I don't know actually if this directly correlates to the Dune release or not as far as them repealing the decision. I know the big thing there was it's the fact of it was the deal of like the licensing right as far as Warner Media making the decision to do obviously the HBO Max drop, you know, obviously while we were still in the middle of the pandemic, without the consent of Legendary, who was also a co-producer on this, right? Not only a co-producer on that, but a co-producer on Godzilla vs. Kong as well. It's a lot of corporate figures. It's a lot of confusing terminology. It's a lot of like kind of corporate lingo. But again, this is the stuff that I constantly continue to push and say, like, this is the stuff that's important. This is the stuff that we need to pay attention to, because this is the stuff that determines the type of media that we get for the next however, you know, many years that we get. You know, similar to what you were telling me the other day just about the Disney acquisition, the Disney change in leadership, which again, I wasn't even aware of until you made me aware of that. We can talk about that on a later variety show, but like I feel like it's similar as far as that goes, right?
Yeah, it's similar, I think, in principle, although one is, you know, Chapek replacing Iger and sort of going back to old practices that were broken up by Iger because of the fact that like the creators didn't have as much power as the company originally intended, or at least in Iger's sort of recollection of what he felt Walt would have wanted, and which was the best for the properties owned by the company. This one's different because now there's different hands in the pot. You know, this Amazon AT&T sort of merger with MGM. Now that there's different hands in the pot, the you know, Amazon acquiring MGM.
Right, MGM, but like the AT&T
Yeah.
Time Warner thing, that's completely separate.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. I was trying to say the Disney and the AT&T of it all are different than the Amazon and MGM thing.
Right.
But what is the big thing here is like so many titles now are questionable of regards to like their rollout plan and their release schedule. Like now Amazon essentially owns James Bond,
Yeah,
and
right.
like what's going to happen with No Time to Die? Like that's been a movie that's been just decimated by the pandemic and hasn't been able to be released yet. Same with Dune. These films, as far as I know, are both finished, and they've just been waiting for that right moment where they can make their money back in theaters. But now there's talks of like, okay, well, hey, guess what? HBO Max has been doing pretty okay with the movies to streaming and theaters at the same time. And they're not accounting for the fact that and this is where I think it's interesting. And I just think each side is going to be stubborn and dig their heels in, right? So
As they
the
do.
HBO Max folks are obviously going to push their umbrella company to be like, yo, you got to have Dune air on HBO Max now. It needs to be in both because the service is the future. Streaming is the future.
Right.
The problem is, and it's kind of what's similar to happening right now with A Quiet Place 2 and how
that whole Paramount Plus thing, right? What is that? That like, is that another 45-day window before that goes on streaming, or is that like a 9? Okay.
Krasinski and Blunt initially signed a deal where they would get bonuses on how well the movie performs within a 90-day window. But now that it's only in theaters for 45 days, their bonuses are going to be cut severely in half, even if the film does well, because there were stretch goals in there. And so they're not accounting for these streaming services, I think rightfully so, are adapting to the modern times of, hey, some people are still spooked about the pandemic. Yes, vaccines are going out. Some people still aren't getting them. Some states are better than others. Some countries are better than others. We're still not fully recovered, right? That's the end all be all of it all when it comes to like how these platforms and companies have been adjusting and using their streaming services as their new sort of it factor. Whereas in the old days, it was the movie theaters first, then the streaming service. Now it seems to be the streaming service, then the movie theater. And so like these films that had these budgets from the yesteryear, which I mean by that is James Bond, No Time to Die, or Dune, right? Those were shot before we knew a pandemic was coming, when we thought they were going to get a 90-day theatrical rollout, if not more, if the movies perform well in select markets like a major city where you can keep those films in theaters for like 3 to 4 months and just keep making that trickle in cash if they were going to be as big of hits as they thought. Now it's like we're nowhere near going to make as much money back if we put it half on streaming because it just, that's what happens. You buy it at an upfront cost, so they'll probably buy Dune for like X amount to go on streaming, but there's no way that amount's going to make up for the endless tickets they could sell, people going to see it 3, 4, 5 times, word of mouth. And so like, it's just for these people who have kind of their careers, the creators who hedge a second, a third, a fourth film in Dune, or James Bond ending in the way that they wanted to end with Craig, and then obviously having some money in the bank to then start a new. I'm sure there's going to be a new James Bond. We'll just cast someone new. Can we do that as big as we want? Or in the case of Dune, because we can obviously get another James Bond, it's just a question of how big will the budget be, because there might not be as much if they can't sell those tickets. If it's half streaming, half theaters, we're not going to have as much money to fund the next project. But with Dune, like, we need to break even. We need to at least see that we can sell tickets to even get the second or third. We know the scripts are there, but obviously we're got to take this one slow because it's like an IP that failed in the 80s. And like, we're trying to get it going now, and it's got a lot of money thrown at it, but we need to make that money back. And they can't do that if they're just doing streaming, half streaming on HBO Max, and then half tickets in theaters, because you're going to give, look, be safe. Don't go to a theater if you don't feel comfortable. But I mean, I think, the movie isn't going to do well with half the people choosing to watch it at home.
Yeah, it's exactly like what we were talking about, right? During the pandemic, when we talked about the HBO Max drop and the decision, right? And how, again, like, we were talking about, like, oh, this is going to be great, like, at first, right? But, like, I mean, we didn't know it at the time, but, like, we had to assume that, like, at some point within the future, right, that vaccines were going to be rolled out, and that at some point, like, these giant tentpole movies that depended on that theatrical revenue in order to kind of ensure, like, the financial stability of kind of really everyone involved, Again, it's a matter of, again, we talk about these executives, right? And the fact that, like, they have no conception of the fact that the artists depend on this money in a way that they really don't, because, look, they're settled, right? They've got stockholder options that are going to tie them over for years to come. They don't care as far as this goes, It's that Game of Thrones ideology, right? The common people continuously suffer while the High Lords play their Game of Thrones. That's exactly what we're seeing here, right? It's exactly the same thing, right, that we talked about when we first discussed the idea of James Bond being up for sale, right? And how, like, MGM was settling for no less than $600 million, which we knew that, like, yeah, if Apple or Amazon desperately want to put up that money, they could, but also definitely felt like that could have been short-sighted, obviously, in the long term. And now we're kind of seeing the effects of that, right? We're seeing what's going to happen, because, again, even if they had put up that money, it still would not have accounted for the constant trickle in cash from the repeat viewings of going to see these types of movies, right? Because that's, at the end of the day, how these movies make their money and how they make their bread and butter, right? And that's kind of why Disney obviously was able to kind of reign supreme even during the birth of streaming these last 4 or 5 years, is because at the end of the day, these movies were events, right? The only movies that make money in theaters now are events. events. We know that, right? But we've known that for the last couple of years, right? But the insane thing that we talked about with this pandemic, and kind of now that we're seeing on the weird after effects of it, is the pandemic kind of robbed the ability for all of these events to come out and make their money that would have in 2020, right? Not just the Warner Brothers drop, but the Paramount drops, the Disney drops, the Sony drops, the Universal drops, all of those movies that, again, like that's kind of the thing about 2021 is that it's kind of 2020 combined with 2021 as far as all of those movies being delayed, right? And now we're seeing the ripple effect of it. And I don't know, like, I guess, obviously, my whole thing, right, is I've definitely gotten used to the HBO Max drop, but, like, certain movies, like, yeah, I definitely did want to see it in a theater, right? But just, if I can kind of, like I said, I feel you kind of nailed the whole kind of theatrical aspect, but if I can just kind of chip in my 2 cents as a consumer, the problem with me is that it doesn't matter how big of a movie it is, you know? It's like I only saw Marriage Story 2 years ago in 2019 in theaters because somebody asked me to go and see it, and because they already had a ticket. You know, I wasn't going to go see that movie because I knew it was coming to Netflix, right? As big as The Irishman was, I was never going to see that movie because it was coming to Netflix. Same thing with all the HBO movies that have dropped so far this year. I know Godzilla vs. Kong was playing in a theater right back in March when that dropped, but I'm like, bro, it's free on HBO Max. It's not even like I have to do that stupid thing that Disney Plus is doing with the $30.99 thing. It's free.
No, it's free.
You know?
Mortal Kombat, free.
Mortal Kombat, free. Exactly. Judas and the Black Messiah. Yeah. Again, different scenario, obviously, again, because that was the whole Oscars debacle, which I'm just glad we've left behind, but free. So, like, just as far as the consumer mentality, right, and that's kind of like the trick that they're going to have to pull, right, as far as that goes, because, again, not only are we dealing with that mentality, right, of kind of the streaming kind of now dominating and theaters having to play catch-up, obviously, not only do we have to deal with the fact that streaming has all of those different reliable factors, but also we're dealing with the fact that people are now going to have to make that decision even with the event movies, right? With movies that beforehand, right, they would have made no question as to whether they saw in theaters, right?
Yeah, 110%. Matt, I want you to clarify. Do you mean the initial move back like a few months ago when HBO was like, you know, the Godzilla vs. Kong of it all being on HBO as well as in theaters at the same time and Mortal Kombat? Or do you mean like this news that just broke this week that we're talking about right now? I just want some clarification because I think jumping the gun could be used in many different ways.
Yeah.
So I want to agree with you. I just want to know exactly which way I'm agreeing with you. And, you know, Dom, I will say this. Think about this too. What director wants a flop on their resume? And
not just a flop, a movie that was not guaranteed, but like a movie that would have been seen by, I mean, here's the thing, right? It's really tricky in order to kind of quantify that because the movie would have been seen by billions of people regardless. It's just a matter of, in this sense, right? I feel like more so the financial aspect and also like the
financial flop
aspect,
because
right?
I think Dune, whenever it comes out, however it comes out, it's going to be the social media buzz for at least 2 straight weeks, right? And that's going to be huge. But what if it's only half, what if it's only that 45-day window paired with HBO Max and not that full exclusive 90-day theatrical run?
Right.
Well, great. You know, the directors, the actors, they're getting retweets. The movie's being received. People are watching it, talking about it. That's what you want to have happen. But where's the justification to make another? Because the dollars won't be there as much. Right. So it's like, cool, okay, the studio is winning. They're getting the retweets. They're getting the subscriptions to HBO Max. They're getting the movie scene. They're getting their advertising dollars made back on merchandise because they're all going to run their advertisements on Facebook and get you to buy the shirt or the screenplay or whatever, you know, the trinkets. But the director isn't going to be able to make a second film and it's going to look like a stain on his resume. It's going to, if there's young actors in it, it might not, it's going to screw up so many of the creators on screen and behind the camera. It feels like a very suit move. That just they're not thinking about how they're affecting the people supplying the product that they're the ones in control of. And the Warner HBO Max move, totally. Yeah. Matt, I think they all jumped the gun, but
in the minute it felt like a smart move because we were still kind of steeped in pandemic, and that was when like kind of the numbers were spiking again. So at the time, it was a smart move. But I mean, it was weird. Like when I talked about this with Alex, obviously when it first dropped, but I kind of got the sense even then that it was going to be like kind of jumping the gun, right? But again, like nobody knew like what the future of cinema was at that point, right? But if we're just bringing it back to Dune again, like this is not an inexperienced director. This is not like a new young cast. This is one of, if not the biggest casts for a big budget movie that was set to come out obviously in 2020, now obviously in 2021. Again, you know, amidst the pandemic. And this is a director who, again, just in this past decade alone, Encendies, Prisoners, Enemy, Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner 2049. That's not a track record to sleep at, right? It
No.
almost kind of amazes me that Denis Villeneuve was like one of the last people that's able to get like that big a budget for his movies. And his movies don't do that well financially. Blade Runner 2049 was not a huge hit financially. Arrival was not a huge hit financially. So, like, I don't know what the kind of sway is that he gets. I'm just assuming it's the fact that he's one of the last kind of perpetuators of original cinematic ideas, which, again, is kind of counterproductive when you talk about the fact that Blade Runner was a sequel, but just given what he put into that movie and how that movie does so many things that so many sequels are afraid to do, you know, and giving that the big budget feel, right? Whereas so much of the time we've been talking about the fact that, like, we know that, like, the only way that a movie gets that big of a budget treatment is when it's based off of an established IP of some kind, right? And original ideas that, obviously, Dune, you know, being the first exception on his resume, but, like, you know, and this is a cast, again, I rattled off the names again: Timothée Chalamet, Oscar Isaac, Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista, Stellan Skarsgård, Javier Bardem, Zendaya, who in, like, the last 5 years has become, like, one of the top 5 most bankable actresses in America, you know? Like, this is not a lesser-known indie cast. This is a fully stacked, hugely ensemble cast that was very, very expensive to get. You know?
And if they don't make their money back, it's going to be a one and done. So
Yes.
I think, like,
Which sucks also because, like, sorry to cut you off, but, like, this, again, like you said, they're not even adapting the whole book. If they were adapting the whole book and then they wanted to, like, do the sequels to Dune, then I would be like, okay, like, I would be unsatisfied, but at the very least we get the full complete book. But, like, this is not even going to be the entire book.
No, that's what I was saying. We knew we were going to get more. We knew that this was a long game, and now we might not have such confidence, and it's such a shame because had they known this going into making the film, maybe that would have changed things.
Right.
Maybe that would have reallocated some budgets, added some contingency to see if they can survive a sort of half streaming, half theatrical release, and they didn't have any chance for that. I think it's very unfair to the creators. So I think there's two sort of closing arguments I have here. One of them is go Amazon. You know, if you have the money to buy MGM, you have that whole back catalog. Amazon Prime now gets bumped with, like, I think it was like 40,000 titles. The article I read
Like that.
on CB, I could pull it up right here. You guys can go find it. The Guardian, 40,000 plus titles. That's huge. That's huge in the back catalog. That's a solid acquisition. Maybe we can even bring some good name back to the MGM name because it's been a little dead for a while. It'd be really cool, I think, to see Amazon, you know, MGM and Amazon company get that lion back in the mix. You know, we all miss it, and some great movies were made with it. So I think that's cool because, hey, you know, it is what it is. That's business. But I think now we need to sort of do what Iger was doing as opposed to Chapek, which is, okay, so we have these new acquisitions and we now need to figure out the best way that we can be a perfect home for these new titles. How can we best service these movies, these films, these TV shows, you know, animated, whatever, so they can be successful, and so we didn't waste the money that we just put into buying them, and so that they can, you know, give us returns and create new amazing trilogies, you know, universes, potentially with Dune. And so hopefully that happens, but it already seems like the conversation is not strong in regards to servicing the creators because of the fact that, like, the rumor mill is churning and we're hearing, oh, Dune might be on HBO Max and in theaters. Like, that's not going to assure a second film.
If there's one thing I've learned in this short past couple of years that I've been doing this, it's that the rumor mill is never, ever fortuitous nor really productive towards a movie as far as that goes in recent years with the internet. And if you want to ensure your movie's success, you don't let that stuff get out as far as that goes. You know, like if there's one thing that we've kind of learned in all the kind of preceding years that kind of started with Batman vs. Superman, it's that whenever the suits get involved to that extent, it doesn't bode well for the products because the products are the ones that end up suffering, as we've seen in these last kind of 5 to 6 years now of this kind of for like peak of mediocrity that we've been seeing with these movies. You know, because again, we want our movies to be great. You know, and Dune, I'm not going to say that was going to be like the one that got us back on track, but like the fact that property from like that experimental director was going to get that big budget of a treatment and that big of a marketing push, like, was awesome, you know? So, yeah, I guess if you don't have anything else to really add to that, you want to move on to the next thing?
Yeah, I mean, Matt just says Warner does not want Dune to flop, but it might. And
all of their actions could continue to prove otherwise, so...
Yeah, they can't let it flop. I agree, but the fact that they're even showing signs that they might doesn't look good.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it doesn't bode well.
Like Matt's doing, let us know what you guys think in the comments below about this topic. If there's anything we missed or any points that you think we should consider, this is going to be a clearly ongoing conversation here on the show. So
Yeah.
let us know your thoughts, and of course, subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. That would really help out the channel. And yeah, so Dom, you just finished this second topic here.
Yes, I did.
Last night.
Yes,
Do you want to introduce it for
us?
us?
It's funny because, again, like, and not to rain on your parade or all, but like, I will definitely admit I am very guilty of the fact that every time I recommend you a show, you watch it, and you're very good about that. And every time you recommended me a show to watch, I was not the best at keeping up with it, right? I'd like to think I've been better recently, right? Because I watched Kim's Convenience, I watched Ted Lasso, and a couple other shows that you recommended me. But let's just say that the conversation is definitely a little bit one-sided. But so when you recommended this show For All Mankind, I was just like, I didn't even know what to think of it, right? Because I hadn't seen anything from Apple TV Plus, so I had no idea what to make of it, right? And I watched the first episode, and from the first episode, and I saw what that opening scene was, and I was like, oh, shit. Okay, that's what this is. Because we're talking about For All Mankind. We talked about this show on our podcast a couple of months ago, obviously, when the second season premiered on Apple TV Plus at the beginning of this year. And I think the thing that already, if I could just do a quick non sequitur about Apple real quick before we actually get into the show, it's that the thing that I'm noticing about Apple, right? I noticed it first with Morning Show, just with the buzz that show was getting, and I'm seeing it with For All Mankind, and I'm seeing it with elements of Ted Lasso, right? Which is that, to me, Apple is doing the thing that I thought Netflix was going to do, that I thought Amazon was going to do, that they really haven't, which is that it's actually a giant tech company that has all the money to throw at all these projects, but they're actually letting the creators, you know, not just any creators, mind you, but they're letting experienced people make these products that are kind of embodying all the best of what we loved about that peak era of drama television throughout the 2000s and early 2010s, right before streaming kind of kicked in the late 2010s and kind of overrode that, and mixing it with the best of the old school television mentality. It's the best of all worlds. It's the best of the old school television dramatic world, the best of the streaming world, where we're getting these quick, tight, confined stories that are also able to tell so much and have these very, very rich, very embellished characters. And, oh man, like, I already loved that first season enough, right? And then just seeing, right, I heard, right, that there was going to be a time jump within the first season and the next season. I'm like, oh no, I was a little skeptical, because every time I see a time jump in a show, I worry, because it usually, more times than not, it has not been handled well, you know? I'm not going to say anything specific, but there have been a lot of examples that I've seen where there's a time jump in between seasons that it just kind of kills the momentum of the show. But this is probably the first show that I've seen where not only does it work well, it works to the show's benefit, because obviously this is a show that is all about kind of continuing, you know, forward with, you know, exploration and innovation and what we're capable of doing when we kind of put our minds together and accomplish all of this. And while season 2, that finale, was beyond shocking as far as how they handled certain two characters, you know, it did that thing. It did that thing that I love from my drama shows when they do that, which is taking certain aspects where it's like, wait, what? Why did you do that? And then you look back and you think of how it's contextualizing it throughout the show, and you realize, oh shit, they were building to this the entire time. You know, it's part of it's some of the best elements of The Sopranos, some of the best elements of Breaking Bad, some of the best elements of Mad Men, some of the best elements of Game of Thrones before it went off the rails, some of the best elements of The Wire.
And Tracy?
Yeah, I'm talking about Gordo and Tracy. Of course I'm talking about Gordo and Tracy. Oh my God. Dude, that hurt. I have not been affected by not just one, but two deaths in TV in a TV show finale. It's been a long time. It has been a long fucking time.
With the fake out, where they lead you to believe that it is a suicide mission, but then they offer hope in that scene where they're patching each other up, and you're like, oh, they might make it.
They're gonna make it. And they don't.
It's filmed so well, where it's like one of those clever, not a camera trick, just clever camera employments of deception as an audience member, where they have you. In that moment, you are theirs. You are the film crews. Yeah. And it was so rewarding, yeah.
Oh man, dude. I mean, again, like, not to do a detriment to the rest of the season, because this season was so good. It did that thing that, again, I haven't seen a second season do, honestly, since season 2 of Game of Thrones, where season 2 comes out and you're like, okay, are they going to suffer from sophomore syndrome? Are they going to be able to top what we got in the first season? And they just take everything that the first season did, they run with it, they add on top of it, they flesh out the remaining characters even more, they introduce even more characters that actually manage not all of them, but managed to actually improve upon it. And again, Gordo and Tracy were two characters that in that first season, I'm not gonna say I wasn't the biggest fan of, but again, to me they were part of the crew, right? As far as that goes, they were my favorite characters, but like I definitely thought I'm like, oh, I've seen this type of story before. I was much more so into Ed and Karen's whole storyline, especially how that worked, and also just kind of into the whole NASA and alternative history of it all, right? But I feel like the first season, right, that got you into the world, right? Now we're introduced to the world. So now we get to know the characters, right? And like from the get-go, as far as like kind of introducing Gordo and how he was kind of washed up and how he was going through a midlife crisis and seeing that him and Tracy had separated, right? And seeing kind of all the different characters and where that ended up, obviously, with Margot and Ed, and obviously what happens with Molly in the first episode, right? And even how they managed to bring that around, and Ellen. And they're just doing all this awesome stuff with these characters that, again, I'm like, thank you. I have been missing this from my television shows, right? This is the shit that got me into TV in the first place. And like just the way that they're able to build to that, like just kind of, I love it how in episodes 8 and 9, right, when Gordo first gets to the moon, and you're still questioning, like, oh, is he going to be able to handle it, right? But he manages to drop the weight, and he manages to handle himself, and, like, he really, you can tell, like, he really is going to, like, try and win Tracy back, and he really is, like, he does understand, and he's learned from his mistakes in the past as far as that goes, and then for them to do that, I'm like, oh, I hate it when they do that because, again, like I haven't seen it in a live action show in a while where they're able to provide something so satisfying and yet so soul crushing at the same time, And then when they have that post credit scene, which I was whatever on the post credit scene in the first season where it's just kind of voiceover like to this TV where we're seeing this massive payload take off where we don't really know what the context of it is until we see the second season. But this time, right, like we're on Mars. Right, we're like the moon base is one thing, right? But now we're on Mars, and
I instantly knew the time jump was the '90s because it was pretty obvious with Nirvana being the song. But I mean, I think after such an intense finale and an intense season, you could use a little on the nose to sort of like unwind with it.
Yeah,
the guessing game's over. Now it's just how awesome is this going to be? And like just before we get too far away from it, the Gordo and Tracy thing was so brilliant. It's just masterful writing. And I do think this season has some setbacks and we'll get into that. But overall, I still think it is above Invincible for my show of the year so far because of the Gordo arc and his character. And it's what you said. This show is such a testament to the writing of yesteryear in the sense that large ensemble cast, but managed so well. No one gets lost in the cracks. Everyone has a purpose. Whether you agree with the purpose or not, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
It is meaningful to some extent, and I think it adds for a richer and more rewarding fulfilling if you really, really stick with a show like this, because it is tough to get through at times. It is a drama. It's slower. It's got those traditional drama elements, but again, it's sort of steeped in this modernism as well because of, I think, the streaming culture and the fact that they know it has the binge quality in the background. Obviously, they release them week to week, but you really can binge this show in a bubble. Yeah. And I think, look, writing naturally changes with the time. So even though this is a week to week release, it does have its modernism in there. But what it does, though, it rewards you with story first in a way that I haven't seen in a long time on the small screen. Because with that Gordo arc, like, all right, you're happy for him. He gets Tracy, but to what cost? He's gone.
What cost? Exactly.
And he's dead, and she's dead. And so, I mean, it really is like a beautiful Romeo and Juliet style thing. And it's just like, man, this could have been such a silly show. That's the thing that kills me the most about it. And I think what I'm the most infatuated with is this concept can be so ridiculously silly.
Yeah. We saw it done wrong with last year with Space Force. We saw this premise done horrifically wrong with Space Force.
A little different because no period piece aspect there, but yes, you're right.
Yeah, as far as that goes, and like, dude, I'm just getting choked up the more that I think about it, honestly. Like, just as far as like, how did the show take two characters that, again, I was indifferent towards and make me love them so much, How does it do that? A TV show, a live action drama TV show. I'm really struggling hard to think like that I watched I really think that I can't even say Game of Thrones because of how badly those last couple seasons screwed it up, but I really gotta say
Game of Thrones to me stops around season 5, 6.
Yeah,
but same. I will say, like, my initial thoughts on season 2, I do think season 1 is stronger.
I agree.
I think that comes, though, with the territory. I think when you have to further depict this expansion of space looks like and further elaborate past what we've actually been able to accomplish as humans in space. We haven't done nearly as much as this show obviously has. And so I think it could get real silly real fast. And I do think the writers do a great job of keeping it rooted in reality. Whereas, okay, that probably is what would happen. And all right, that does make sense that there would be some conflict with the Russians up there. Okay, so this feels real, but then again, it is always fiction. It's not it's not a, like, it's like a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's a period piece in that era, but it never happened back then. So there's always that suspension there, which I think is cool because I think while Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's very grounded and you could almost like think that something like that could have happened back in the 60s when everyone was tripping on acid, like you could think that this could have happened in humankind, but it didn't. And so there's always going to be that sort of like silliness there, but what they're able to, like, it's just they know their characters. I would love to just sit in on that writer's room and just hear them spitball, because I think how a director needs to understand a character to give an actor in that moment sort of something that they're not giving them on screen and help them bring out this hidden trait that even the actor who's been playing the character for months on set didn't know was there. I think every single one of these writers can employ that same level of knowledge about their characters that a director should. And I think that's kind of unheard of in writers' rooms anymore. Just the level of control and just nuance that this show has when crafting these characters and putting them through the gambit that they go through at NASA. It's honestly unreal. Like, I don't know why the show isn't the biggest show on TV right now. I don't think it's honestly going to get much bigger than it is, which isn't very big. And I think that is going to be the biggest crime of this decade as far as TV goes. And it's only 2021.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is that, and again, like, just as far as in order to kind of expand on your points, I don't want to take away from anything, like, Ronald D. Moore has said, like, they have plans for this show to go, like, again, for all pun intended, like, very, very far into the future. And, like, I can almost see this kind of, in a weird way, incorporating another element from another one of my favorite shows of all time, which is Skins, where part of the charm of Skins was the fact that they literally traded up casts every couple of seasons, because, you know, so they could bring in and introduce you to a new batch of characters every couple of seasons. At the rate that this show is progressing, they're going to have to do this point. We just saw two of the main characters, main cast members get killed at the end of season 2. Season 2, even Breaking Bad did that. I haven't seen that since The Sopranos, since they killed Big Pussy at the end of season 2 with The Sopranos. Like,
I mean, how old is our lead, Ed Baldwin, in real life?
Well, Joel Kinnaman is mid-40s. I think he's close to 50. But, like, in that time
we can't have him playing an 89-year-old working at NASA.
We just can't. Like, he's not going to be, like, this show is going to trade up cast, obviously. And I think, again, even I think to the detriment of certain of the present storylines, but having Alita and having Danny and having, what's her name? Oh, my God. Ed and Karen's adopted daughter, whose name I can never remember.
But she was a great addition. They even did that so well.
Kelly. Having her in there, right? Even if the storylines presently are not that much, you could just tell them, like, okay, this show has a future, right? And it just, again, props to Ronald D. Moore, the showrunner, creator, Star Trek guy, Battlestar Galactica guy. This guy's had a long, long history in Hollywood in both movies and TV with sci-fi writing. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Pretty underrated,
as far
man.
As pretty. How about the most underrated? He wrote Star Trek First Contact, which is widely hailed as like one of the best Star Trek films.
Although I don't speak about it too much, in my list of top 10 TV shows is that Battlestar Galactica series from 2008, and that's him.
Yeah.
It's like one of the greatest sci-fi series.
Yeah, I've seen some of the effects and like some of the storylines on that. Like, I want to get into that show because I'll admit sci-fi on TV is definitely like kind of the era of TV that I'm the least educated on. But like now that I know that there's like been good not just good sci-fi, but fantastic sci-fi done on TV, specifically like when it relates to this guy, like I'm all in as far as that goes. And just as far as like, so Chris, do you know about like kind of where the inception came from for this show?
No.
So according to Ronald E. Moore himself, the idea of the show actually he was having lunch with a former NASA astronaut, Garrett Reisman, one day, and they just apparently like just discussed the possibility of like they literally just talked about like kind of exactly like what we talked about when we first figured out the show. When we see what is the opening shot of the first season of the show, which is what if the Soviets had beat us to the to the moon, and kind of what that does psychologically to us as a country, and the fact that they're able to turn that into this kind of monstrosity where already after only 2 seasons we've seen so much happen with this concept and with this premise and kind of where it could go in the future. Like as far as I kind of I was really sad because, again, I thought that I talked about Game of Thrones, right? And even though Game of Thrones screwed the pooch, I thought that Game of Thrones was going to be the end of the monoculture and kind of the end of those types of shows, right? And kind of the only types of shows we were going to be seeing going forward were kind of like, not to throw shade at the HBO Max, but like the HBO Max shows, like the kind of, you know, silly, more lighthearted, funny shows that you didn't really have to invest in because there was a chance they might get canceled after a couple months, you know? Like kind of what Netflix did with Glow as far as that goes. But the fact that there is still a show that exists like this, a show that not only is fantastic in the present, does all the things right that drama TV did for so long, but also has the legs to sustain that 4, 5, 6, possibly 7-year tenure as far as TV shows go, and be able to actually have the legs to stick the landing each one. I'm all in on this show, and I only want to see what goes forward with it.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I think, you know, even if we like break form every 10 years going forward, I think the writers, like I said, have such an unbelievable handle on this script and this character and this universe that just I'm all for whatever.
Yeah.
Like no, sometimes I'm like, you know, don't break away from what I like.
Right.
Because it's really working and it's really special. And I don't want to hear that you're trying new things in the off season.
Right.
You know, I don't want to hear that. Like, keep giving me what I want. And, you know,
on the other hand, you have shows that benefited from changing it up every once in a while. You know, like The Wire changed its shit up every single season. And there's a reason why it's one of the most hailed shows. Game of Thrones, at least until it screwed the pooch, was known for consistently changing up the trajectory of the storylines every single season. You know, those to me are like what crafted for some of the best TV shows in recent history.
Yeah, I think the biggest fault of this show is probably the Apple TV Plus of it all still being such an underrated and obscure streaming service, which is so strange from one of the largest companies in the world. How they just haven't been able to dominate in this market the way they should have. I mean, I feel like Amazon's finally a player. They're finally at the table.
Finally.
But where's Apple? You know, they're still at the kiddie table. And I think it's so sad. It's such a crime because all their shows that I've watched.
I have a theory about this. I do have a theory about this, and you're not going to like it when I say it. It's because
let's hear
Name to me the exact moment, and you know it. I know you know it. Don't do that thing where you'll be like, I don't remember the moment because we're on camera, but I know you know. When was the moment that Amazon became a player? When was the exact moment? You know it.
The pandemic?
That helped, but was when they released a specific show.
Oh, The Boys.
Thank you. And what is The Boys?
It's a deconstruction.
Superheroes.
Oh,
when they brought
Apple hasn't
superheroes
played that
into
game
it.
so far.
That's why. Because, again, these streaming services don't market shit. They don't. So the only time that people start to pay attention is when they introduce something that becomes a part of the pop culture zeitgeist. And Apple, again, they don't have to. They don't have to do anything with the streaming services because they make $1,400 billion a day. You know, grossing out that numbers based on just AirPod sales in a day. They don't have to do anything with this streaming service if they don't want. And like I said, it's always that catch-22 because it's like we have these shows that are fantastic that we love, right? And they're getting all this funding from Apple, but then we have that show that catches on and it's great. But then the minute that it gets the mainstream status, that's when the quality starts to dip. And it hasn't happened yet with Amazon because a majority of their stuff that's caught the public eye is still relatively new, but I'm already bracing myself because it happened with Netflix. It's sort of in a weird way happened with HBO Max, and I'm just waiting for it to happen both with Amazon and then with Apple if Apple chooses to do that.
HBO Max, there's a lot of content I've been watching on it. Majority of it's been pretty terrible. I think the superhero bubble.
There's a very clear difference between the HBO of it and the HBO Max.
Yeah, exactly. There's a very clear difference. I think the superhero bubble definitely impacts this type of television as a whole, but I also think
look at Invincible.
Yeah, I think it also speaks to the culture as a whole, what shows of Apple have broken through. Really, it was morning show for like a week, and then Ted Lasso's been like the sort of go-to because I just think we've lost the ability as a people to have this sort of intellectual thought while watching a show, which is so sad. Why dramas are now niche when they used to be like the leader in television. Now they're the niche.
When Breaking Bad and The Sopranos were the most watched shows, when Lost, which again, all the sci-fi elements of that show aside, when it started was a survivalist drama, you know? Like, when those shows could be the most watched shows. And now it's WandaVision, and then it's Falcon and Winter Soldier. And as much as I enjoy and love Invincible, and as good of a show as that was, it's Invincible.
It's still a superhero show. Yeah.
It's still a superhero show. At the end of the day.
Hey, at least we're here sort of tooting the horn about it. Jay Manley, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Jay. Been a minute.
Great shows that make us happy, then boom. They do pull the plug.
Glow and Kim's.
Yeah.
And from another personal favorite show of mine that nobody's talked about because it got canceled again before it got a chance to really catch on. It's this fantastic Showtime show that was like the best thing I'd seen from them in years, called I'm Dying Up Here, which was a show about stand-up comedians in the 70s, and it was fantastic. Got canceled after 2 seasons. And that was a show that could have gone like 8 seasons, and it would have been incredible, each one.
Right. Well, hey, the last thing I'll say about For All Mankind before we hit our final topic for the evening is at least Apple is giving it another season, and they stand by their streaming service. At least they haven't canceled any of their shows.
Yes.
Because they clearly haven't, I don't think, made the returns on this that they want.
Definitely. But again,
like
they don't have to.
90,000 AirPod sales a week.
Thank you. I was even listening to Bill Simmons when he talked about it on Spotify. He's like, yeah, Apple doesn't need to give a fuck about Apple TV Plus. They don't care. They make their money back in a day on iPad and AirPod sales. They don't need to care about Apple TV. You know?
At least they're like just keeping the shows going.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, hey, I never thought I'd advocate for a giant evil tech conglomerate, but hey, if that's the thing that is going to take it, keeping quality TV on the air, let it happen. That's all I got to say.
Exactly.
You know, if Sam Esmail's in favor of it, I'm in favor of it, because that's the way we're going to keep getting great TV. And speaking of great TV, we avoided it for this long, but of course we had to go back to Disney. But again, man, it's not getting the attention week to week that Falcon and Winter Soldier WandaVision did, which is a crime against humanity because, man, Bad Batch has been crushing it, dude.
It has. It really has.
It's been crushing it.
I think people severely, because I saw a lot of complaints about last week's episode, and I think people severely misunderstood the depth there. So I kind of wanted to talk about like this week and last week's episode.
I'm down with it. I'm down with it.
Maybe share to our audience why I think there's more than meets the eye. So
it's
basically,
this show has taken a backdoor pilot and turned it into one of the things, and turned it into literally just one of my favorite shows right now. There hasn't been obviously that much and obviously in a comparative, but like this is I didn't think you could possibly get much better than that last season of Clone Wars, which obviously was what it was as far as holding that special place in my heart. But this show was just taking everything that last season did fantastically and just running with it.
Yeah, so let me say this. I think to all those people complaining about last week, it was obviously a great Omega character moment, sort of showing that, hey, I can get the mission done if Hunter goes down. That was awesome. We needed that sort of development, but really I have like a theory that's brewing, that's I think happening, where I think this show is going to end with inevitably all of the clones, the Bad Batch, finally executing Order 66.
No!
I think when Wrecker banged his head, I think it's twofold. I think he partly wanted to stay out of it to do something nice for Omega, to make her feel a part of the team and build her room. But I also think there's a reason why he was, I think that's the area where I looked up a YouTube video like, yo, that's the area where the inhibitor chip is. And then when he's fighting Fennec Shan this week,
that too.
When he's fighting Fennec Shan this week in the subway, in the sewers, she hits him right in that spot, and he should be able to take her down no problem. I mean, he's a monster, and he's completely dismantled. And so I think that sort of impact activated his inhibitor chip, and I think we're slowly, unfortunately, maybe not going to get a Bad Batch season 2, and I think that's why it's so many episodes, because I do think they're all going to succumb to the Empire's wishes. What do you think about that?
Oh God, no. I thought you were gonna say they were all gonna die, and I would have even taken that over that. Oh, that's heartbreaking.
This is even worse, in my opinion.
Oh, it's so much worse. It's so much, because I love these guys. I love these guys so much. They took what was literally kind of like a fun offshoot, kind of backdoor pilot from those first 4 episodes of the last season of the Clone Wars, and just are running with it. Like that premiere alone was fantastic. It was one of the best premieres I've ever seen, both animated and live action. And oh man, that threw me for a loop. I don't want to see that happen, but I know it's gonna happen now. But
well, think about this though, okay? Yeah, because I think Omega is gonna be fine. Because my second theory is the Kaminoans. Which factors in that article that I sent you today. Did you get a chance to look at that? I did, and it kind of
Okay.
it kind of led me to think about this. I think the Kaminoans are, because we know that over time, like, if so, I heard a great channel sort of explain it this way. If you photocopy a photocopy, it slowly over time just turns into a white sheet of paper. The more times you photocopy it, it loses that potency.
Right.
And so Jango Fett's DNA, which is what the clones that Yoda was in control of and the Republic were in control of, over time they're slowly going to lose their effectiveness, and we're starting to see that now with some of like the defects. At first it was the Bad Batch, they were defective, and now over time, like, there's maybe for cost effective reasons, but also maybe the Empire isn't as dumb as we think, and they're sort of realizing, like, hey, if we're going to have this crushing control, we can't have clones that aren't as effective as what we just, the ones we just overcame, and we lost a lot of casualties. Like, we don't have that many originals in the batch. And so I think force sensitive clones are kind of the only next step for Camino
So
to
you think
keep
that's
their
gonna
prowess
happen?
with the Empire. And so I think one thing I've noticed, there's two similarities I've noticed in the TV realm of Star Wars on Disney Plus. There's always a child who's important and everyone's trying to get him or her.
Yep.
Omega, Baby Grogu. Baby Grogu had healing force powers, which we've never seen before, and Filoni really loves them. And so I think Omega is the asset that they want to get back. She's sort of like the foreshadowing for the Mandalorian, because she's pre in the timeline of, like, hey man, this Empire is really messed up and they're using youth to sort of get the strongest clones. And I think she is a force sensitive clone. I think she's cloned from a Jedi. And
Oh shit. Which Jedi do you think she's cloned
because
from
the
though?
Jedi that was dead under the tarp in the first episode that the Empire wheeled off when they got back, the Bad Batch got back to base. There was that Empire
Right,
under the hood,
yeah.
and they didn't incinerate the body; they were taking it somewhere.
True.
On Camino.
We know it wasn't Shakti, because Shakti has like died 3 separate times and across multiple different Star Wars properties. She died twice in Revenge of the Sith. So
I think Camino is like realizing, like, ooh, we're not evil, but we're gonna get crushed by this Empire.
yeah,
And so
they're smart, those Kaminoans. They know what they're doing as far as that goes. And dude, when I read that, and not to mention just that, but how that's gonna build into, obviously, again, how it's continuing with like Filoni and Favreau's very subtle like erasing of the new trilogy as far as like how bad that went. It's fantastic stuff. Like I said, I knew I wasn't gonna be able to put it as eloquently as you, but dude, if even half of that shit happens, again, I think now you understand why I'm of the mind, dude. Fuck the movies. If I never get another movie again, keep it shit on Disney Plus, because they are doing right what it was that Star Wars was doing wrong for those first couple years that it was in movie form.
I agree. And so, like, theories aside, I think, I want something new. I want something refreshing. I'm sick of being in the same era of Star Wars that we've always been in. But if you are going to keep us, the Filoni Favreau way is the way to do it. Because you need it's like, I think we've seen what happens when you get so far away from George Lucas's vision. I mean, we have a 3-movie trilogy that I don't even like to recognize.
Oh my god, I love that you even acknowledge that as a trilogy. I just look at that as a series of movies that are loosely connected by the fact that they have the same characters in each one, but those movies have no semblance of chronology between them whatsoever.
So at least Favreau and Filoni respect where these characters come from enough to sort of treat them the way that they should, and the way that they probably would react in this transitionary period from Republic to Empire. And it's great. It's everything I love about Star Wars in these tiny 25-minute episodes, because we kind of even had a great callback to that speeder chase on Coruscant that starts off
the
Clone Wars. Attack of the Clones. Yeah, Attack of the Clones. Sorry.
Yeah.
And that was so cool. And that was so
I dig that
well
speeder
done.
chase.
I love that speeder chase. That's when you kind of
man.
like really get to see Anakin come into his own. It's our first Hayden Christensen moment. It's just like their ability to make you look at those movies in such a positive light while still keeping you in that era you've been complaining about, but not complain about it at all. They're masters at their craft.
Bro, now you understand. Now do you understand why I'm like, fuck the movies. The animated shows are where it's at, because oh man, like they make this shit. They make this shit so good and so in depth and so complimentary of Lucas's vision, and they make it look easy. They make it look. I have no idea how the fuck they were able to do this, but they did. And I guess this goes in line with, I guess we should talk like Filoni got himself a little bit of a promotion too.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that? I looked into it more. Apparently, he's had that title for a year now. It's just
really?
Lucasfilm is so discombobulated that they didn't update their website until yesterday.
Wow.
So does that say
That's
anything about how our
that
favorite
should, I
galaxy
feel
is
like
being
that should
handled?
tell you everything you need to know about why a majority of the movies that we got sucked in the last 5 to 6 years. But look,
Yep.
all I know is Filoni and Favreau are back on top. They know what they're doing. They're riding the Star Wars train correctly as far as that goes. And as long as Chapek doesn't screw with them the way that he's screwing with everything else at Disney, oh man, I am even more excited for Star Wars in a way that I kind of haven't been for a couple years now.
Well, let me ask you
So,
this.
yeah.
Not that I want to see Kathleen Kennedy get fired, but now that that position is, I guess,
Get her out of there.
not that it
Get
wasn't
her out of there. I
public.
won't even hesitate. Get her out of
Yeah,
there.
right? She needs
Yeah.
to go.
Get her out of
She's
there.
a part of the problem.
Get her back to Spielberg, right? She was at the best when she was working with Spielberg and Frank Marshall and producing those movies. I'm sorry. I do not want to demean on her ability as a producer in Hollywood at all, but everything that she did with Star Wars was completely detrimental to the process. I'm sorry, but when every single creative that you have working under you, with the exception of J.J. Abrams, who is problematic in and of his own right as far as his take on these movies, right? When every single creator that you have working under you, you either fire or leaves because they don't like the work environment, that is not conducive to a good working environment. I'm sorry, it's not.
Right, and let me add this to that. She's obviously talented. She brought us
Clearly.
Terminator and some other great films. So
Terminator,
obviously-
the Indiana Jones movies, E.T., the list goes on.
Exactly. But I think there is something to say about being the right person for the job, and I
Yes.
don't think she's the right fit. I think we've had enough time to see it now. Clearly, she's going to be able to work again in another place. So I think
No,
it's
she'll
just
be
not
fine.
a
She'll be fine.
yeah. I just don't think it's a good fit, and I think Star Wars is one of the rare sort of IPs where every single spin-off, and I'm talking about like the comics have a Steam, the video games have a Steam, the graphic novels have the novels have a Steam, and they enrich the experience where it's like, look, I love Halo. For as much as I love Halo, there's thousands of books written. I've never went and bought a Halo book. I've never went and bought any sort of like other fan fiction sort of extended universe things. Only in Star Wars have I done that. And it's like, she not only messed up TV, she messed up the rollout of the new books and completely got roasted for this Old Republic stuff because it's just such not what it felt like. It's just, you got to respect Lucas's vision. You worked with him especially. How can you stray away from that? It makes no sense to me.
When George Lucas himself comes out and says that you fucked up, you fucked up.
Right. We shouldn't
Not to
even said
mention the
anymore.
fact that, and again, this is the most baffling thing, right, about this whole thing from the beginning, right, as far as Kennedy, and I know that she was appointed by Iger. Filoni was hand-picked by Lucas himself. Hand-picked by Lucas. That's not nothing. Coming off of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the single greatest animated TV show ever made. That's not an accident as far as that goes, And the fact that Dave is still this humble, and the fact that he's churned out this many Star Wars properties that have, for the most part, all been great. There is not a single... All been hits. Every single one, regardless of kind of the intermittent quality within certain specific pieces, those earlier seasons of Clone Wars, that first season of Mandalorian. I'll even throw in there the first season of Rebels.
But
They've all been hits.
I'll even give him a pass there because that first era of Clone Wars was when the TV landscape was drastically changed.
Drastically different. But even still, the stuff that he was accomplishing in those first 2 seasons of Clone Wars, to me, I even still remember watching it on Cartoon Network back in the day. It was still miles above the rest of the shows that I was watching. And that was already in an era where Cartoon Network was being very brave and very daring and very experimental with their content. We're talking Justice League animated show, Codename Kids Next Door, Ed, and Eddie, Ben 10, Teen Titans. Like, the list went on and on. It's like the Clone Wars really just a cap of already Billy and Mandy. It was already a cap to like a phenomenal era of animated television.
Yeah, I could not agree more. So with that being said, I want your thoughts, though, on this week's episode and sort of how Bad Batch has been developing before we get out of here. What's
My
your
whole
take on
thing
that?
with the individual episodes is it's weird because it's kind of the same sense that I kind of gave The Mandalorian. Obviously, just The Mandalorian obviously just got a lot more eyes on it and a lot more flack, I think, because of the live-action nature, because of the animated nature, obviously, right? I'm kind of just, like, taking it as it goes along, right? So I'm kind of watching it, right? It's kind of like my Saturday morning cartoons, but on Friday mornings. But, like, the fact that it's this rich and it's this engrossing every single week, like, again, it's another simple, like, quick, oh, we got to stop on a planet. Oh, we got to make a quick getaway, right? But I'm already seeing the seeds being placed for whatever inevitably is going to come. And the fact that, again, obviously we have the hints and the theories, right? But the fact that this is probably the first, well, not even just the first, because, again, I really didn't know where Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 were going. The fact that Star Wars, since it's come to Disney Plus, ever since consistently has been able to surprise me and allow me to like legitimately not know where it's going, that's a testament. That's a testament both to the individual episodes and the overall story in and of himself. So while I'm not necessarily going to go super hard on last week or this week's episode, again, just the little character moments, right? Crosshairs being as brutal as he was last week with murdering all of them, and then having that sit down, right, where he has that little moment of contempt, right? That little moment where he says nothing, but you can tell immediately. The moments with the Kaminoans, which, again, seem like nothing in and of themselves, but clearly are building towards something, you know? The moments with Omega, who could have been such an easy throwaway character and is getting all this richness and development as far as how the Bad Batch is caring for her, you know? The little intricacies, like, between the Bad Batch, right? The fact that Echo and Tech could have been the same character, but the fact that they are so polarly opposite different, right? And the fact that they're playing off all this history, it's doing everything that I love, not only from Star Wars, not only from animation, but just, again, from television storytelling in general, right? And that's why, like, just, again, I don't know where it's going, and I don't want to know because I want to be just as surprised once I actually see the final end-all, be-all results.
Yeah, and, you know, I don't look up theories for everything I watch. I only do it when I'm completely invested. And so, you know, I see people saying, hey, I'm sick of this Planet of the Week. First of all, it's a spiritual successor to the Clone Wars, and I think it's beautiful for that. And second of all, I think you're not seeing the full extent of the web we're weaving here if you only think it's planet hopping. There's so, like Dom said, so many amazing character moments and interactions. And just, if you're a Star Wars fan, I think this is like where it's at right now.
Got it.
And I really hope we get like, look, man, they set the bar high with those last 4 episodes of Clone Wars. I really hope we get something bombastic.
Dude, if dude, and all I know is, again, same creative team. I think we're in for something big. You know, like I said, it's one of those things where, again, we've only got 4 episodes so far. We got 12 more to go. But if anything, like, this is going to be, it's building towards something huge. And honestly, like, I've been thinking about it the more, and I'm like, yeah, I see this being a one and done. I don't see this getting multiple seasons. But whatever they're going to do, it's going to be huge. So,
yeah, I want to sit there for at least an hour.
Dude, like, I almost
hope.
kind of want to wait and just talk about it once the final episode comes out, just that we could be like, we'll just be sitting there stone-faced for like 5 minutes straight before any of us is even able to get a word out. We're going to be like, dude.
That's going to be a fun night. That's for sure. It's going to be a fun stream. It's going to be
insane, to say the least. But
with that being said, that's our stream for the night, guys. Yes. I hope you enjoyed the Variety Hour. It's something new we're trying to do here, just so we can, you know, talk about all the things we just can't hit. There's not enough time. Like,
so much stuff.
Jay and I were literally talking, Dom, and I had to tell him, I was like, dude, there really is not as much time in the day as we want. Minus my terrible spelling there, you know, there isn't as much ads time is not what I meant to say. But and that just shows how little time we have. I can't even correct it.
Dude, like, ever since I started working full time, I finally understand what it is that people in the industry are talking about, where they're like, yeah, if I didn't have this as a job, I wouldn't be able to watch this myself. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even know how I'm doing. Like, I'm waking up early. I'm, you know, going to bed like later the night just so I can hit all this stuff. It's a lot to hit, and it's just never ending. And that's just the new stuff. I'm not even talking about like the old stuff that I'm constantly trying to catch up on. You know, I still haven't seen a single episode of Leftovers and Mad Men and Americans yet. I'm still trying to finish Mad Men. I still have three and a half seasons left of Mad Men. You know, like.
Right.
It's so much. And so that's kind of the purpose of the variety show, right? We're trying to hit everything it is that we can't hit on the main. Oh my God, fucking hiccups.
Damn.
That we're not able to hit on the variety, that we're not able to hit on the main podcast show. Again, it's nice, it's loose, it's casual. We're talking about old shows, we're talking about new shows, we're talking about movies that we haven't seen in a while, we're talking about new movies that maybe have been released in a while. Again, we're just, anything that we want to talk about, we're going to talk about on this show. It's kind of a way to free us up from constantly having to slave up to the Disney shows, which honestly were just becoming a chore to watch. They really were, I think it's safe to say. And again, it's
feeling the fun of being a critic for me.
Exactly. But it's just another way for us to continue to interact with you guys, the fans overall. Because again, this is who we do this stuff for. You are the guys that make this channel worth having overall. So thank you guys once again for tuning into this episode of the Talkin TV Variety Hour. We're not going to go live every single Friday in a row, but we're gonna try and go live like any Friday that we can, you know. But just know that, like, there may be some Fridays where we don't go live, you know.
But there'll be content on that day.
There will always be content on that day, certainly. It's just a matter of, if we can hit it as far as with our schedule allows. But this hour, depending little over slot will be the slot that you guys come. Again, if you're sick of us talking about Talking Thrones, if you're sick of us talking about like kind of the movie or like kind of big topic of the week on our podcast, if for whatever reason you decide to get off the road a little bit on our Fast and Furious first time watch and whatever else ends up going up on Wednesday, this will kind of be like the place where you just kind of chill with us and just talk about the stuff. Again, if you guys have a show that you guys love that no one else is seeing, again, throw it in the comment section. Please let us know. This is the place to do that.
Yeah, totally. And so with that being said, there are other things we hope you would do for us. And that would be, of course, we hope we've earned your subscription. We love doing this and we want the channel to grow. We're pushing right now to 350 subscribers. We're at 324, really trying to hit that 325. And obviously, guys, we're in this for the long haul, and we hope you guys are too. So please subscribe, leave this video a thumbs up and a comment, as well as hit the bell next to that subscribe button so you can be notified and never miss when we post content. Also, Dom, we have some social medias, right?
Yes, indeed. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Talkin' TV Podcast. We post there every single day, sometimes, actually most days, twice a day. So if you guys follow that, that'll allow you to keep up and stay up to date on all of the stuff that we are doing on this channel that we've got going forward. Again, we've got so much new, crazy stuff coming down the pipeline, things that you wouldn't even imagine that we were capable of doing. And you can find all of that out by following us on our social media platforms at Talkin' TV Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Chris, where can the good people find you?
Yeah, you guys can find me at Christian Evanko. Evanko spelled Evanko. I make music, which you can aptly find through the link in my bio. I have another podcast called Talkin with Andrew and Chris, which is a show about life, music, and everything in between. That's Talkin, spelled the same way we spell it here. And again, just hit that link in my bio, guys. I would really appreciate you stopping by and checking out all the different types of creating that I love to do. And Don, what about you, man? Where can they find you?
At Movie Nerd Reviews on Facebook and Instagram. I just post trailers. I post sarcastic things. I post memes. I don't really use my own personal profile as a means to kind of publicize myself. Again, I'm outside of the podcast, I'm a very down low person overall. I just like to post there to have fun, obviously, because fun is a thing that is slowly disappearing more and more from our lives as each day goes on. So I just like to keep the fun going overall. But you guys can follow me there if you guys should choose to continue to follow me on there. I'm almost up to 1,000 Instagram followers. I still have no idea how I managed to do that. But as always, people, again, subscribe to the channel. Keep up to date if you want us to keep doing what it is that we're doing here on the Talkin' TV channel. And as always, people, you guys remember it. You guys know it by this point, but I'm going to say it at the end of every single show that we do. 12 seasons in a short film. Watch more motherfucking movies and TV shows. We'll see you guys next time.